Good evening, everyone. Apologize for the poor video and sound quality. My tablet's not working, so I got to use the computer, and it's not very good. This week's question, week 5, answering the question from Alan Brand. Alan asks, is profiling based on ethnicity a right or wrong measure to use in the war on terror, considering the context of civil liberties? I like this question a lot. It holds particular meaning and value to me. As I've stated before in a prior video, I am a classic liberal, as it would be, or a constitutional libertarian is probably a more accurate term these days. So civil liberties play a very important role in my life and in the lives of everybody, really. But some of us hold it more dearly than others at this point in time. So in that sense, it is begging the question of security versus liberty. Again, there are issues that are competing with one another constantly in the realm of political science and in policy making. And I would say, in response to this question, is it a right or wrong measure? I would say yes, it's both. It's a wrong measure because, as the Fourth Amendment states, we should all be secure in our persons and effects. Meaning, we should be free of fear of search and seizures, of illegal search and seizures, which would include, being stopped by police simply for, quote unquote, driving while black or driving while Arab or whatever the case may be. In the same token, you have to consider the aspect of security. Brian Senker, and I hope I pronounced your name correctly, is biracial, Indian and Caucasian individual, and he brought up the point, that he has been profiled in terms of like airport security, for instance. I myself am half Fijian and half American, so I've experienced the same kind of thing. You can tell darker skin, beard, all that stuff. Especially when I'm wearing this, it doesn't help the appearance of looking Middle Eastern, even though I'm not. I think in the context of the question, though, I don't typically get pulled over or profiled while I'm driving, and if I did, I'd probably have a bigger issue than if I was being profiled as going through a TSA line to get on an airplane. Mostly because as I'm driving along the road, that's a bit more. It's a bit more of a constitutional issue and a bit more of a civil liberties issue. Driving around in my car, I'm driving around in my personal property, which I have a right to be secure in. Same thing in my house. If the authorities feel like they need to search me for whatever reason, they need to go to a judge and get a warrant. Now, considering airlines and airline security, you're talking about a method of mass transportation, a mass transit system, where hundreds of individuals are being transported, 30,000 feet above the ground, where one single problem and everyone dies. It's much more dangerous than driving in a car, or walking down a sidewalk, or whatever the case may be. And plus, in that situation, you're not traveling on your private property. You're traveling on pretty much every time, the private property of a company or something like that. So I would say if it wasn't the government providing the security, then it should be the responsibility of the individual airlines to provide their own security, which I think they would do, but that's another discussion entirely. But as the question of, is it right or wrong to profile based on ethnicity, it's kind of bad, it's kind of rude to do that, but at the same time, if it's not violating your constitutional right to be secure in your person and effects and your property, then it's not a wrong thing. It's all well within the means of the government's function of keeping the population safe and secure. I think that's an important thing to distinguish. Furthermore, Alan asks, do you think it's a good measure or not? Speaking in terms of Israel at the Ben Gurion Airport, that they do practice profiling to distinguish who should be certain and who shouldn't. I don't think that's a bad thing at all, especially if you know that there are groups like ISIS who have called for terrorist strikes in the United States and against American interests and targets. So I think in those situations, it makes sense to if you see someone who looks like they may be a part of an organization like that, then it makes more sense to search something like that. If there was, I don't know how to say this without sounding really rude about it, but just the matter of factly, if the Black Panthers were calling for killing cops, it would make sense for the cops to profile black people. If the Klan was calling for people to go out and kill black leaders, it would make sense to profile white people. It's just kind of the matter of fact. If someone's calling for some sort of action against another person to harm or kill them, it makes sense to profile based on that. And that's exactly what the context is in this question, I think. I personally have been, quote unquote, randomly searched a number of times. It's part of the reason I don't fly anymore when I can help it. It's more of a hassle, and frankly, I don't like flying anyways. I'm kind of scared of heights. But a big thing for me is I like my privacy. I'm not planning on doing anything wrong, but they don't know that. And so I am a big dude with darker skin, dark hair, a beard. I have been mistaken for Hispanic, Middle Eastern, Hawaiian, you name it. So I go in kind of expecting that I'll most likely get searched. If I don't, I'm kind of surprised, to be honest with you. And in some ways, I think that is not necessarily a bad thing, because they're just trying to keep people safe. So I hope that answers your question, and I'll see you guys next week.